Welcome to Investories, unlocking the investing mindset and business strategies of high-performing individuals to level up your financial game, crush your goals, and build a life fulfilled. This is the show that asks the questions you wish you knew to ask. This is Investories.
Welcome to the Investories podcast. Booyah, with me, your host, John Hooper. And today we've got a bit of a different episode for you. Bob Bernotas is a franchise expert. So he speaks all things franchise from both sides of the aisle. So he's worked building businesses, building franchise businesses, and actually owning, operating franchises, and also consulting with franchisees. So Bob has the full gamut of franchising. And even if you're not into franchising, he has some really good points of view on core fundamentals of business. So how to build a business, how to kind of do your due diligence, the mindset it takes to get things rolling, and then also the specifics of franchising. So you might be in a mid or end of career kind of position and looking to pivot out of W2. He's in that consulting role to help people make that transition. Really, it's all about him matching with entrepreneurs and helping them find the right opportunities. And he's super open and very kind of stand-up guy. So it's a really interesting conversation that kind of has those parallels to what we do in investing and in real estate investing, as well as business and founding businesses at the same time. So please do give it a listen, because even if you're not in the franchise world, you'll probably get something out of it, or it might get your brain working a little differently to identify kind of, well, maybe I should be planning for my retirement or my transition from my W2. Bob owns Franchise with Bob, which is his website. Please do go and give it a check out. There's a free ebook on there as well, so worth going to take a look. And while you're online, check us out on YouTube. Just look for Investories Podcast, and on Instagram, Investories Pod. We're on Instagram. And come say hi. And if you have any questions or you want to suggest a topic or a guest, you can always mail us at investoriespodcast@gmail.com. And we promise we answer all of them. I think we answer all of them. Sure, we do. But anyway, without further ado, here's Bob. Welcome to Investories Podcast, Bob Bernotas of franchisewithbob.com. Hey Bob, how's it going?
It is going well. Wish I were where you are. It's a little cold here, but
yeah. Where are you based, Bob?
It's manageable. Southeastern
Whereabouts?
About 15 minutes west of Philadelphia, about 15 minutes. A little area called Glenmore, PA.
Oh, well, I can see out your window. It looks like a gorgeous autumn, grey, gloomy mixed day. So.
Exactly. No leaves on the trees anymore. Still a little green on the grass, but that'll fade quickly.
So, Bob, I know I'm British, but I didn't bring you on to talk about the weather. So we wanted to talk about all things franchising. So I know nothing about franchising, and it's not something I've thought of doing. What I find interesting is the people that do it, right? That it takes a special person. And I roll that out to you, Bob, in terms of it takes a special person to build a business around franchising and advising. What was your journey into that space, into the franchising world?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, I failed at virtually any job that I had. Either I just decided it's not for me, or I got canned. I just couldn't keep my mouth shut. So very early on, I was in my 20s when I broke into my first franchise, and I begged and borrowed to get the capital to put that together. And I opened my first West Coast video franchise in Philadelphia. And you know what happened to that industry, but I opened, fortunately when that unit opened, it opened in December of 1986. That January, it was actually a month later, it was the top unit in the chain, which propelled me and allowed me to open a bunch of them throughout the Philadelphia area. Then I kind of lost my mind and went up to New York with them as well. But that was the first franchise I broke into. I've owned several different franchise concepts and multiple units with each. I was CEO of a national chain. And I've been consulting now for a couple of decades. Used to consult mainly on the franchisor side, helping companies position for growth. But over the last 10 years or so, I morphed completely on the franchisee side and
Mhm.
help people find the right franchise concept. And I'm also a franchise investor myself. I still do that. I get high on my own supply, so to speak. But I'm a believer in the franchise industry.
That's really interesting. I think the one that stands out is that the W-2 it wasn't for you, right? That's really interesting. It's like
100%. No, no. Look, trading time for money is not my thing, and having to be told what to do by people I really don't necessarily care for. Not that I'm that difficult to get along with, but it wasn't my cup of tea for you Brits out there. Uh, but yeah, I mean, as soon as I broke into franchising, I knew, this is my home. This is what I want to do, and I never looked back in the least.
what did that step look like? So shifting from this isn't me, this isn't where I'm comfortable, and I totally get that. I'm very lucky. I work in a job where I have a lot of autonomy. I still have a boss, but I have a lot of autonomy, and it's a lot of creativity. So I feel very fortunate that I'm
Mhm.
not in that kind of hole, like wedged in
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah,
Like this is your life, and I'm going to dictate it to you.
right.
So moving into franchising, what did that process? Did you look at other things, or was it kind of it
Yeah,
just
well,
was a golden goose?
prior to that, I mean, I tried to start. I started a small company on my own. It was a computer hardware and software company, and that was
Hmm.
back when I don't know if you remember the old compacts, the original one, the size of a suitcase, and had a screen about yay big on it. I got into that. Was didn't do overly great with that concept. But then I that's what I broke into soon after that. Got into franchising, but going from what I experienced, and I know what my clients experience when I'm taking them through the process. I mean, it can be nerve wracking. I mean, making that jump, stepping away from that perceived safety net that you have in a
Hmm.
W-2 job can be really, really difficult for some people, and some people can never get past that barrier. I mean, I always like to, share, some of the experience of some of the clients that I've had, my own experience with people. But when you have a job, I mean, what is the safety net? Really? I mean, can you lose that job? Possibly.
Hmm.
Can you, when you're, 5 years, 10 years into it, can you sell your job? Does it have any value? And the answer is no, of course, to that. So if people can get past that fear factor, and usually it's just fear itself in many cases. But if you find the right franchise concept, and if you could make that leap, it can be absolutely life changing. And most of the clients that I've taken through this process, I mean, I can't tell you that I have a single client that would say to me, Bob, I regret making the move. I mean,
Hmm.
overwhelmingly, everybody has said to me, Bob, it was the best thing I've ever done.
What makes a good franchise concept, and I guess what makes a bad one? Maybe there's some red flags that people should look out for.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and they're the same things, just on the opposite side of the ledger.
Fair.
But the team behind the franchise, what's their background? Have they built franchises before? The companies, I mean, or I should say, franchising has changed dramatically over the last quarter of a century. Gone are the days when somebody can launch some type of concept, whatever it happens to be, a little retail establishment, a little fitness, beauty, whatever it happens to be. It's working out pretty well for them. So they decide, hey, let's open a second one. They open a second one, that's doing well. They decide to franchise it. They hire a franchise attorney. They pay him 100. He puts the franchise documents together. They, by osmosis, somehow are able to sell a couple of franchises, and those franchises fall flat on their face and don't
Hmm.
succeed. That's a story that's played out over and over and over again. Used to be played out because the vast majority of franchise companies, to franchisor themselves, that launch fail for that very reason. The franchise companies today are extremely well capitalized groups. So I never show a concept unless there's something bigger behind it. Okay. It's
Okay.
either owned by a larger entity, and or there's an organization called FSO, a franchise sales organization, one of the better ones behind it, and there's a lot of capital behind the company. To me, it just makes no sense to add that layer of risk, because it's really not about what the widget is. A lot of people, like in the example that I was giving you, can open a concept and do well because they're doing it. But when
Hmm.
you have to make it work for others, when you have to duplicate the process, when you have to make it work for the lowest common denominator, that's where the problems start to begin. So I would submit to you all day long that the most important component in a franchise organization or having success in a franchise is not the widget, it's the system behind the widget that helps you have success in a franchise.
So how does that look? Is that like in terms of simplicity, or is it in terms of if there's something complex, it's proven and described and all that good stuff?
Well, the simplicity is in the facing the franchisee, okay, making it as simple as possible for the franchisee. But the complexity behind that may be really significant, okay?
Hmm.
But it's not going to work if you just dump that complexity on a franchisee that's never been in this world before, and have them function effectively. So franchise companies do at least the better ones, and look, there's plenty of bad ones out there. I would suggest I would go nowhere near 2/3 of the companies that are out there, but there's
Interesting.
some
Wow.
really, really good ones as well. And the complexity is in the back, being able to hand a franchisee a system of doing business that is simplified, straightforward, cookie cutter, pick your cliche, paint by the numbers type scenario.
Hmm.
They assign a coach to you. They take you through an onboarding process, get you up and running. A coach is assigned to you that works with you on a regular basis. They hold your hand, the better ones, as much as possible for as long as you're going to need it. Now, a year into it, you're not going to need it nearly as much as you did that first 6 months when you launched that franchise. So it's an overall system. It's the capital behind the company. It's the team behind the company that has a lot of experience in franchising.
That's awesome. In terms of trends in franchising, and interesting you said about the West Coast video. I remember going to Blockbuster as a kid and picking out titles and all that good stuff. What do you see the future kind of trends or the next couple of years in terms of franchise? Is it more of the same? And I don't mean video, I mean
It,
fast food, or is
Look,
it
rarely does something new, a new widget, emerge. The
fair?
trends really lie in the types of franchises in terms of how the franchises work with their franchisees. Like if you go back again a quarter century ago, the idea of semi-passive franchises really didn't exist. They've become very, very prevalent over the last 10 years, but especially over the last 5 years. And it simply means that these franchise companies have built platforms to support franchisees at a higher level. Now, if you take something like a video store, tanning salon, two of the industries I was in, or you take a boutique fitness type concept, like let's say a Club Pilates, those things are ideal for a franchise investor coming in, putting a manager in place, opening it, letting it run, stepping back, opening a second, opening a third, opening a fourth, opening a fifth, putting a GM in place to run all five, and you can run those semi-passively. But the problem, excuse me, with those types of concepts are each time you open a new one, you're duplicating the cost. Okay.
Hmm.
So as an example, if we talked about Orange Theory, for instance, pretty much everybody knows Orange Theory. On average, they're
Hmm.
$1.3 million to open. From an ROI perspective, to me, I mean, it's a good concept, but I mean, I could show clients many better concepts from an ROI standpoint. And each one of those, so if you want to scale something like that, let's say it's dropping 200K to the bottom line, and you want to scale with an Orange Theory, each one that you open is going to cost you over $1 million. Now, there's concepts that are, let's say, in the home service category. Okay. It's a category, by the way, that I happen to love because the
Hmm.
ROI is so strong. And more of these types of companies over the last 10 years have developed platforms to support people on a semi-passive basis. But concepts like, I mean, pick a concept. It could be a house cleaning concept. It could be something B2B related. It could be, let's say, painting, like CertaPro Painters, a very, very successful home service type franchise. But franchises like that, many of them have developed tools like the national call center. So you don't have to have admin people answering the phones because you need multiples because people quit, people get sick. You have to cover all the hours. So a lot of these companies have a national call center now that handles all of that for you. So it simply means that they've built better tools, a better support platform to support franchisees so they can get it on a part-time basis. Okay, because many people who have a W-2, they may not feel comfortable enough to just walk away from that W-2 and jump into a franchise with both feet and quit what they're doing. That is the main reason for semi-passive franchises, and even some that are even more towards the passive level. It allows people to have an off-ramp from corporate America as gradually as they want to have that off-ramp. And maybe when the franchises miss, maybe they make a decision at that point, do they want to leave or not?
That's really interesting. I love the concept of an off-ramp. That's kind of what I've been working on this year and into next year is like, I don't want to be in a W-2 for the rest of my life. So, excuse me. So what does that look like? In terms of what you do and the consulting side and working with people, after all, it's, people-driven business. What does that process look like? And I guess, what do you look out for potential franchisees? Isn't the right word to say. I guess people interested in working with you. What does that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, most of the clients that I work with, I mean, they're referred to me by other clients. I have some other means of gathering clients as well. But when I start working with clients, first I take some time and assess and sit down with them via Zoom. And generally it's a 30-minute conversation just to assess, does it make sense for us to work together? What are you looking for? I mean, what is your budgetary constraints? How much time do you have? So there's a lot of variables go into it. We make a determination, does it make sense for us to move forward together? If we determine yes, there is, then we schedule a consultation. I ask them to complete my confidential questionnaire prior to the consultation. Generally takes about 20 minutes to complete, but it gives me the background information I need on them to start doing my job properly. We do the consultation. On the consultation, we'll spend about an hour or so on a Zoom call. We'll review their confidential questionnaire together. I'll have lots of questions for them. I'll answer any questions that they have. And I may float some trial balloons on that call, just different categories of franchising to see how they feel about those. I try to focus more on the characteristic of the role they want to play in the business as opposed to what the widget is, simply because when someone gets into a franchise, the key thing is, in my opinion, having success first. Because if you get into something, it might be your passion, but you're not successful with it, you're going to learn to hate your passion real quick. So I focus on ROI, earnings. I don't focus on what the widget is. 80% of my clients are looking for semi-passive type concepts. So we do the consultation. After the consultation, I take all the information. I create a summary, usually 2 or 3 pages for my own internal use. And I use that to start matching the candidate, my client, with different franchise concepts that may be. And I may start out with, I mean, look, there's over 4,000 different franchise concepts out there. But I'm also part of a larger group of other consultants. We have a couple of people, and their function is to analyze franchise companies and then create a preferred list. So I typically start out with our preferred list, which might be, the top 15 to 20% in any given category of franchising. Develop my own more concise list. And again, I focus on ROI, earnings, don't focus on what the widget is. And the vast majority of those are semi-passive concepts, but they're just some of the best financial opportunities in franchising. So I always start with that first and work out in concentric circles. Then when we do our next call, I probably will be able to show them 5 or 6 concepts that I think will be a really good fit as a starting point.
So it's essentially franchise speed dating or matchmaking. Quite like that.
Matchmaking,
That's
speed
awesome.
dating. When it comes to the brands, yes, sometimes we need to sort through them pretty quickly to see what's going to be
what connects. Love that. In terms of, and I guess you're going to give me the answer of it depends, but in terms of ROI, what do you typically look for in a franchise? What
Um,
feels right?
the best ROI possible. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, I just bought, and let me preface this up front by saying this is an absolute unicorn. So I'm not going to name what the brand is. It's a health related concept, men's health related concept. It's one of probably the fastest growing brand in the country right now. But I just bought it myself about 2.5 months ago. I bought 6 units with this concept. The launch cost, if you looked at their item 7 in their franchise disclosure document, is between 224 to 389 to launch a unit. But what I found so intriguing, appealing about it is they're showing in their item 19 of the franchise disclosure document, it talks about revenue and what the profitability is. They're showing a top line of 1.8 million. They're showing a bottom line of over 600,000. Okay. That's a unicorn. I mean, how many things can you get into that might be in the 300 and that type of profit margin? Those are few and far between. But if a client or candidate I'm working with says to me, Bob, show me the best financial opportunities in franchising, that or something comparable, maybe what I should have.
That's amazing. I'm going to ask you what that is after this call.
Okay.
In terms of, you mentioned numbers there. In terms of getting started, is there like a floor that people that are looking at or listening to this and thinking, yeah, I want to do that, I want to get out. How much money should they start with?
Yeah, so the floor might be in the range of 50K in liquid capital that could be put to use, and I mean a couple 100K in net worth. I mean, most of my clients are typically will fall in the $500,000 net worth range, and with that or more liquid capital, all the way up to $100 million. But most are going to fall in the 500K range to maybe 2.5 million. I'd say the preponderance.
Yeah, and not massive amounts, not pocket change either.
It's not,
but interesting.
Yeah.
So does that typically drive that? Who's your typical client?
Typically, it's people coming from corporate America. It's people that are just, hey, I've been in corporate America. I mean, whether they're in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, and I'd love to get out of it. I'd love to, potentially either build some side income. But most people I find they want to get out of corporate America. They don't want to necessarily dive out. Most of my clients are looking for something that they can build on the side, put some time, trade some of their time, but get into something that potentially has a big upside that eventually can get them out of corporate America. So a lot of middle management, upper management, C-suite executives. I mean, it runs the gambit. I mean, I do work with franchise investors and other people that own other types of businesses that are looking to expand their portfolio. But in most, I'd say easily 90% of my clients are currently in corporate America.
So if you were interested in this concept, how would you go about getting educated, I guess? And feel free to mention your business, but beyond that as well.
Well, what I can tell you is you don't want to just dive. I mean, look, there's some resources on the internet, but there's a lot of bad resources on the internet. Most people, when they first get interested in franchising, they go online and they start searching franchises. If you are searching for franchises online, you are 98% of the time you're landing on portals. Those portals, maybe about half the brands out there, most of them in the lower tiers, advertise on those portals. The problem is that 95% of the people that end up coming to them, being funneled to them through those portals, end up not being qualified. So franchise companies waste a lot of time. And then from the prospective franchisee's standpoint, the client standpoint, you're not seeing what you need to see. Okay. You're seeing what they want you to see. You are not seeing what's behind the curtain. You're not seeing how the sausage is made. So my suggestion is always to find a mentor, find somebody that's in the franchise industry, preferably somebody that has owned multiple franchises, that understands the industry. There's lots of consultants out there. And that base of consultants has grown enormously because Everybody has jumped into it thinking that it's a quick payday. But what's unfortunate is the vast majority of these people out there have no idea what they're doing. There's some groups that will charge them anywhere from 25,000. I've seen even up to 100,000 to become a consultant. Get a couple of weeks of training. They're given a certificate and saying, now you're a franchise expert.
Crazy.
In less than a year. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time, and they don't know what they're doing, and they can do a lot more harm than they typically do good. So find a consultant that not only has been consulting for a while, but probably more importantly, has owned franchises, understands
money where the mouth
point
is.
Of view.
Yeah.
And if they've owned franchises and also been on the corporate side as an executive with a franchise company, then there's even more value to that.
Bob, that's so interesting because we talk a lot about real estate, and the time and time again, the advice is get in the room with the right people, find the right mentor to help you on your journey. And interestingly, I've looked at franchise portals before and had the reaction of, I don't know what half of this stuff is. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it neutral?
Right.
Is there a place you'd recommend for people to look if they wanted to look at opportunities, or is it literally go down the route of working with someone who lives and breathes this?
It is. Just find somebody who really understands franchising. If you turn to online sources, there's so many different sources with different agendas, and some of them they appear to be agnostic, but they're trying to steer you towards certain franchises that are paying them a bunch of money to steer them towards. And then if you're landing on, and there's certain portals that are really designed just to tear down franchising as well. And a lot of people hit one of those portals like, oh, I'm staying away from franchising. And look, and for good reason, because there's a lot of franchise companies, in my opinion, they shouldn't exist. They're not looking out for the best interest of their franchisees. I mean, the franchise companies that prosper long term, they stand the test of time, are the ones that adopt the philosophy, your success is our success. The more successful we make you, the more successful we are going to be. And the fact is, these days at least, it takes a lot of capital to do that. All right, not just to grab the money and run, because most of these franchises they're not making money up front on the franchise fee. The ones that are doing it right, because of the effort, the resources they have to put into a new franchisee to get them launched, to get them up and running, it's a tremendous amount of work for the first 6 months to a year. And then on top of that, whatever the person's paying in a franchise fee, well, look, they had to do marketing and advertising to get that person to come to the table, or they pay somebody like me. The difference is if they're paying someone like me, then I'm bringing them somebody that's qualified, that will check all the boxes that they're looking for. And if I haven't mentioned this, all franchises, I mean, I can work with any of the franchise companies out there. There's over 4,000. There's nothing that restricts me from working with any company out there. Do I do that? Absolutely not, because there's a lot of companies that I will absolutely go nowhere near. So if someone says to me again, Bob, just show me the better franchises, show me the best financial opportunities, that's what I show them. I'd always rather work with a client, and this might turn off some of your audience, but I'm looking out for what's best for my clients. But some of my clients may say to me, Bob, I love my dog. I want to be in something pet related. I love baking. I want to be in something like cookies or pies or a franchise like that. And I always try to politely say to them, is it important to you to make money? Because if it isn't, fine, I can show these, but I want you to understand what you're getting into going in. But if you want to look at the better financial opportunities, be agnostic as to what the widget is. Just look at the financial model and let me do my job and let me put the better financial opportunities in front of you.
So though, yeah, and 100% on that. And just like real estate, there's some really strong, brilliant people in the space, and there's some people trying to pull some money. And if I guess the franchise equivalent is you want a company focused on growth through their franchisees, franchisees, focused on growth rather than simply trying to get franchise fees from their people.
Exactly.
Do they obscure that in their in their accounting or their kind of modeling? How do they deal with not making money and any discrepancies?
Oh, well, they just don't have an item 19 in their franchise disclosure document.
Okay.
And about half the companies out there don't. They don't provide that. And that is, I mean, that's a major red flag right there if they don't have an item 19. And some companies will, even when some of the lesser companies, even when they have an item 19, they may not present it the way they should be presented. Look, if you lie on an item 19, it's not just a question. Franchising is highly, highly regulated.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a question of, okay, could the principals get in trouble? Yeah, they can go to jail. Salespeople can go to jail. Okay.
Wow.
But some companies, just because of the allure of, hey, I want to grow an organization quick, I want to collect franchise, that they shouldn't be taking, that are completely unethical. And they'll take those risks. But the better companies, they're going to be straightforward with their disclosures in their franchise documents. They're going to be straightforward with an item 19 and lay it out and say, this is what our franchisees are making. This is what our corporate units, our territories are making. And they're legitimate.
That's amazing. Yeah. And good rule of thumb, I think, good things to look out for. Bob, I want to be mindful of your time. How can people get in touch with you, work with you, and connect?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. Just go to my website, real simple, Franchise with Bob, and you can schedule something with me right through the website or reach out to me. You can also download, I have a free ebook on semi-passive franchising that you can certainly download. But yeah, just reach out to me. We can schedule a 30-minute call. We'll just chat together, see if it makes sense for us to work together. We'll assess your situation. If it does, we can move forward.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool, and I love the candor. And it's it's an industry I know hardly anything about, but other than I'm not sure about that. There seems to be a lot of franchises, and how many are legit. So I really appreciate the open and honesty and all that good stuff. So thank you.
And I would be completely out of my element in your industry. So don't worry about that.
Totally fine. Bob, thanks so much.
Thank you, John. Great being with you.
And we'll be back next week.
Thank you for listening to Invest Stories. If you like what you've heard, please consider sharing and writing a 5-star review.